with New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 of Public Law 1975, I hereby declare that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, specifying that this meeting would be held on this date in the municipal building, 55 River Road, Edgewater, New Jersey, at 7 p.m. This notice was sent to the Record and Jersey Journal, posted on the bulletin board in the lobby of the Borough Hall, and posted on the borough's website. This time I'd ask for a moment of silence. Councilman Duran, will you lead us in the salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this evening we have a presentation that's for a retired police officer, Michael Sapanaro. And at this time I'd like to invite Michael and his family up to receive the commendation.
They're both deaf.
Yep. Ready?
Oh, boy, this is about making it.
Thank you very much. Okay. We have a citizen citation award. Whereas, on Thursday, June 12, 2014, Mr. Michael Sapanaro, a 97-year-old resident and retired police officer who served on the Borough of Edgewater approximately 38 years ago, was a patron at the Edgewater River Mart located at 880 River Road. And whereas, while Mr. Sapanaro was conducting business in River Mart, an individual came into the store and committed a strong armed robbery, whereby the suspect went behind the counter taking cigarettes. And whereas, when the owner of the store attempted to stop him, the actor punched the owner, knocking him to the ground. And whereas Mr. Sapanaro, despite the obvious risk to himself, attempted to stop the individual from assaulting the store owner and was punched, knocked to the ground, and kicked by the actor. And whereas, even at the age of 97 years old, Mr. Sapanaro continued to display the attributes of a dedicated police officer. And whereas, in addition to his bravery, Mr. Sapanaro has shown that he is a man who holds a strong sense of community and concern for people by getting involved. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, James F. Delaney, Mayor of the Borough of Edgewater, do hereby thank Mr. Sapanaro on behalf of the governing body. We present this Citizen Citation Award for getting involved to Mr. Michael Sapanaro.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a nice award. Oh, I made it.
You want to look it out like that? We'll wait for this to
Yeah, Chief. Chief, my son and my
Oh,
daughter.
he knows me for 30 years.
Nice to meet you. I like that.
Got to congratulate you too. Congratulations. Good to see you.
Good job.
My son and my daughter.
That's, he knows me.
Nice to meet you. Then why would he? Yeah. You can stay as much as you like.
Yeah.
We'll have to do another combination of staying.
He's still a cop. Trust me.
Right?
Okay, Don, here's your hat.
Oh, yeah, my hat.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sapanaro.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not lowercase, lowercase.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Great to see you.
Okay, ready, Dad?
Exactly. Exactly.
Usually I have it just sit there loose and focus on it. I don't know if
Right, moving forward with our conference tonight, in order to continue our discussion regarding the ordinance for driveway aprons, we've invited Catherine Gregory, our borough planner, and Dan Kaufman, our borough engineer. You guys can get started as soon as you like.
While they're being passed down, as you know, a number of weeks ago, we had been before this, the mayor and council, we were asked to look at a parking ordinance for driveway aprons. There was some discussion at that meeting that was done. Since then, there was an ordinance that was written. Now, one thing I don't know about most of you, but me personally, I mean, I can hear things, but I may not understand it the same way you do. And we may write something down, and it's very difficult to look at those words and visualize what that is supposed to be. So, Catherine and I had gotten together, we had looked at this, and we looked at it saying, well, if this is the ordinance that goes through, I wanted the mayor and council to understand what a compliant lot would look like if they follow this ordinance, we'll say 100%, and understand what we're trying to do. I think this gives you an idea of what we're trying to do. If you look at this, we have on the one sheet, there's 3 lots. What we did is we showed 3 sample different lots. We showed a typical 50 by 100 lot with a 1-car garage each side of a duplex and 1 car in front, showing what the driveway would have to look like to actually get a spot in front. We also did a 60 by 100 lot, that's the middle one, showing what a driveway would look like, what 2 driveways look like. The reason why we went with 60 by 100 as opposed to 50 by 100 is just simple mathematics. If we were trying to do compliant lots, what happens is if you do a duplex with a 2-car garage, it's usually about 42 feet wide. On a 50-foot lot, that only leaves 8 feet. What we have seen is they mostly come in that way with a 4-foot side yard, which the ordinance requires an 8-foot side yard, so that wouldn't be a compliant lot, it would still need a variance. So really the difference between a 50-foot lot and a 60-foot lot on this drawing is really, you would have a side yard variance on a 50-foot lot. Okay, so, but we wanted to show you what the driveway configurations would be the same regardless. And then we showed you a third possibility, which there was some talk at one time of making only one driveway for both, and then bringing them all in. And then that would give you 2 cars on the street. I'm just explaining this, and then I'll go through some of our analysis afterwards. The other drawing we have is just showing you kind of what the configuration we were talking about, where the garage would actually inset as opposed to being flush with the front, and that's why you see it'd be 10-foot inset to actually give you more room on a garage. Now, we looked at this, and from an engineering standpoint, you can make these turns, okay? You can make every one of these turns. However, these are very tight turns. As you can see, this is not what everybody is used to seeing. This is not a straight-on driveway. This is you have some curves in here. In fact, realistically, that last one, if we were to do something like that, realistically, we want to move it back at least another 5 feet to get that to work. So practically speaking, they do work. You can park those cars there, but it's really going to be, I'll say, now stepping out of that engineering, and I don't know if some of those cars would actually park there, just because of the way those configurations of the driveways. That's where you're probably going to have some of the issue, and I don't know if that's an enforcement issue that will have to be dealt with, or if that is something you're going to have to talk through. With that last setup, I think the outside cars are going to have a very hard time making that turn. As a result, you're going to start seeing cars that are going to start not parking straight on. They're going to actually park a little crooked in the front, or they're not going to park there at all. I mean, me personally, and this is just me talking, not necessarily as an engineer, but as a person growing up in an inner city, I would know that this, if I was pulling in, and I used to do this, if my parents had a driveway, if I would find a parking space on the street, I would take the parking space on the street first before I would take the driveway, especially if it's a little bit difficult to pull in. And it's a convenience thing at that point. So, I mean, this is basically what we've come up with. We wanted to show you what the ordinance, the implications of what the ordinance are going to do. This is what these lots are going to start looking like if we hold all future developers to the ordinance.
Does the ordinance point to one or two or three of these all specific, or is it?
No, it basically, the ordinance goes into specifically, what it does is it says that you want to put a minimum of 20 feet between driveways in the front. It says that if you have a 1-car garage, you're going to have a 12-foot curb cut for each residence. If you have a 2 or more car garage, you're going to have a 14-foot driveway or curb cut. So that's why you see on the first location, it's actually a 12-foot driveway that just continues out, whereas the other two are 20-foot driveways that actually, after it clears the car, it has to neck down to 14-foot. And in reality, if you have a 3-car garage, the way this ordinance is written, you would actually have to go from a 30 to 32-foot driveway and neck down to 14-foot. Thus, the extra 5 feet that we would want the garage to be set back.
So do you think the first two are realistic? Would work from your engineering or just from your common sense?
From an engineering standpoint, you can make the turns.
How about common sense?
From a common sense standpoint, I would tell you that if you look at that center with the white and the gray car in the front, I don't think they're going to park there all the time. What you're going to find is you're going to find out that it's too difficult to make that turn, and people just are going to have a very difficult time. And what they're going to do is they're going to take the parking space out front.
So if
or park in the garage, or park in the driveway.
If we rule out the third one completely, does that mean the ordinance has to be rewritten?
No, the third one was just this is actually showing you another configuration that can be done. The third one is not even in the, it's not requiring only one driveway. It's actually requiring one driveway per residence. So if this is considered a duplex and considered 2 residences, it would actually, you would be allowed to have 2 driveways. Ruling out that third one is just, This was just showing another configuration that someone could come up with, maybe just to try to get an extra parking space.
What is the space in front of illustration one, out in front? How many feet is that? Is that 12? What's it? Where the white car is?
With the white cars, that's a 10 by 20. Okay, typical parallel parking spaces are 22 feet, but because you have a driveway on either side, you can neck it down to 20 feet because you actually have some more maneuver room to pull in and pull out. They're not going to do a traditional parallel parking.
Is there an ordinance we can bring that in from 2018?
We already talked about
What's the
two.
length of a car?
That's a
Well,
typical.
that's typical, like, you know.
That's a typical length of a car. The typical AASHTO length of a car is, I think it's 7.5 or 8 feet by 19 feet. It's a typical length of a car from bumper to bumper. That takes into account, we'll say, the largest type of car. So 20 feet is traditionally the typical size, so that you don't have a bumper overhang.
Does 1 and 2 require a setback underneath?
1 and 2 requires a setback underneath, and much like what you see in the second.
So you'd have to cantilever back.
Right,
into
what
the-
this is gonna do is, one of the things you have to consider with this is, as far as a buildability, now what it's gonna mean is that instead of the front of all the garages being flush, they're gonna have to be set back 10 feet, which means now you're either gonna lose 10 feet of usable space behind the garage, or you're gonna actually have to build 10 feet back into the cliff.
Right.
Which that's one buildability issue, and then the other buildability issue is now you have a 10-foot cantilever. So now the second, we'll say the main floor, the second floor, the third floor, whatever you want, whatever's above the garage is now gonna have 10-foot overhang, which will have to be dealt with in structural issues. That would mean that it'll probably, I would think it's gonna cost more to do.
You know, I don't know about you guys, I'm just torn about this idea that all these new ones are going up and the whole thing is open, is a driveway. You know, it just doesn't seem right, and then when you do the actual structural engineering drawings, it becomes problematic. And I think we almost need to focus on, the other options, including the spots up on top. We're talking, this is town-wide, but the need is in the north end of Undercliff, and it's, all over, but they're especially, and, there's some options with regard to maybe using some of the parking, I don't know, it just seems like we have to really look at this, because if it's not gonna help, then why do it? But on the other hand, I hate to see, even if it's just a little bit of green, just something to open it, something, it just doesn't seem fair that you have to take the whole thing, that's all.
Well, aesthetically, I can see why you feel that way. I agree with you, because it kind of tends to take away greenery from the front of the home or facade. But from a practicality standpoint, I mean, if you really do the math on what a traditional 50 by 100 lot today, with a structure that is not a duplex, and how many parking spots you can get in front of one of those lots, mathematically, the duplex, they actually remove vehicles from the street, because you're allowing for more parking on the premises of the property. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you look at a traditional 50 by 100 lot, or we'll even say, we'll even go a little conservative, we'll say the 60 by 100 lot. 60 by 100 lot, there's nothing, no obstructions in the front, that's 3 parking spaces, okay, on street, that you would theoretically remove, and you're putting 8, if they're all fully used.
I think the reality is, you're
That's-
talking about an old house that was maybe 1, possibly 2 cars, that we swapped out for
But it could have been
upscale, well, there may have been upscale with people with 4 cars, and I don't know if you get anything personally, just historically, I don't think that's gonna help you. Which doesn't make a difference, but you're saying, but.
Yeah, well, I just think that, you're gonna find plenty of two-family homes today in town, older structures, that have, in front of a home, no more than 50 feet, and according to parking standards, that's 22 feet per parking spot, which means that you might be able to park two cars in front of each home. And you're building a duplex, and if you utilize the driveway and the garages, you've just given that structure, that two-family residence, you've given them 4 parking spots.
see, if you require this, right, then the people coming home and park to work, the last people, they will park in these spots because there's nothing left on the street. So it doesn't necessarily help the older residents or the older homes.
It
It'll be the last resort.
It wouldn't help the new people either, because
Well, only if they-
anybody's gonna take the spot.
Right.
No, what I'm saying, they'll get in there, because they're coming home as late.
They'll get in their driveway.
They'll get in their driveway, yeah.
Yeah. But I
But
mean,
that's after everything else is taken.
having had a two-family home,
Well,
I was able, I had a two-car garage, I could put 4 cars in there. So, I mean, the only one that looks feasible to me is the first one. The second and third one, I don't see how you're gonna get those cars in there.
Well, how many are like the first one? I mean, in terms of like, do we have a sense of how many are being approved that are more like the first one than the second in town?
Well, a lot of the townhomes are going on 50 by 100 lots. Builders are buying those lots,
Okay.
putting up duplexes.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
so most of the ones I've seen, and Catherine can confirm this with you, the ones we're looking at now are more like the second one, but they're more on a 50 by 100 lot. They're coming in for side yard variances, asking for 4 feet on either side as opposed to 8 feet, and they're putting two car garages, 2 cars in the front, and they're running straight out, which basically now takes essentially
Which
40
means
feet.
though that you could have 4 cars in there.
You have
put
4
two
cars. Correct.
In your, you know,
Right.
I mean,
Per side.
per side.
Which means a total of 8 parking spots.
There's more of a possibility that if you have a straight driveway, that someone's gonna use it as opposed to something like this, okay? But then the question is, we really can't tell if someone's gonna use their 2-car garage with 2 cars potentially in the front. I don't know if that's a policing issue to tell them they gotta use that and not use their garage for storage. I mean, that's always a problem, no matter where you go.
You gotta remember,
I agree.
we're cutting the curb. We're cutting the curb for this new development. We're giving them the privilege. They've asked us to cut the curb so that they can have the privilege of using a garage. So we're giving up a parking spot on the street so that you can drive your vehicle into a garage. So we're gonna sacrifice that parking spot, and now you're not gonna use your garage. There should be some kind of obligation to have to use it. And very simple, I think that if you live at this residence here, and you have 4 vehicles, and you have a 4-car garage, I think you can solve the problem with something you can hang off the rearview mirror, just like we do at the marina. That's how we police the marina to make sure that there aren't, no one is parking the car there, and, and just taking the ferry. You've got to have that thing hang off of your,
I mean, myself.
it's large, it's visible, and it's very easy to do.
I'd rather park in my driveway than on the street.
Right, but I think there's a convenience factor here, and I think you get a lot of people who use the street anyway. And the bottom line is that you're parked on the street, and you don't have one of those large tags hanging from your rearview mirror, you're fine.
Well, but then you'd have to give the tags to every human being that doesn't live in a house.
You have everybody, just like you would give everybody a parking sticker, instead of making it a permanent parking sticker on the car, you can make it something that's gonna be removable. Because you never know which vehicle is gonna stay on the street, and which one's gonna stay on.
You're talking about guests and residents, and I mean, like, I hear what you're saying, but I just think it's.
For a guest who's staying overnight, very simple, just call the police department, say, I've got a vehicle in front of my home, and this is the license plate. But Mike, that's done all over Bergen
I know you
County.
say that, and I disagree.
They all
We've had this
over
conversation, I totally disagree. And especially not the town driving here, I know Fairway doesn't do it, Fort Lee doesn't do it, Cliffside doesn't do it, don't even tell me.
But just because they don't do it doesn't
Well,
mean
you
that.
just made a statement that they're all around, I'm saying it's not.
No, yeah, just because it's not done here doesn't mean that it's not done in other locations.
It's not done in very densely occupied towns like
Okay,
our
that's
town.
good. I can see
And it's
that.
because it's just, we have enough police to do what we need to do, and then you're asking them to be big brother, and are you supposed to be in that driveway? I just don't think it's practical. In a perfect world, I agree with you.
Yeah, I
just don't think-
understand that. I just think that maybe by doing that, you'll have a lot less density on the street.
We could pitch them on citizenship and put it in Greg's saying, hey guys, do the right thing, we could do that kind of campaign. But in terms of writing this ordinance and including that in there as a legislative enforcement, I just think you're taking something that's gonna be enforced. But I appreciate the effort.
And
On picture number 1, is that necessarily when the person comes down for a development? Is that going to be the standard? That's it? Well, can they work with the?
They would work with the zoning board. It'll probably be more like a
Doesn't
picture.
necessarily have to have that curve perhaps, because realistically, you have a 50 by 100 lot. We're just asking for perhaps one spot.
You know, one works still, Kevin. I mean, one
Yeah,
works.
no, they were questioning the, everyone's, the way it's cut.
No, one works, right? We all agree with that,
One
right?
is no problem.
Right, but how many are coming in under two? And just should the tail wag the dog? Maybe that's the reason why you don't get the variance, because you're killing us with parking.
That's fine.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, as long as we get one.
And you slow that down. What's driving that? The 650, 60? How do you get it? Did you just,
You know, when you, one is one thing, when you start going to 2, 3, 4 duplexes to connect,
right.
that's
Yeah,
something,
right.
I think, on an individual basis, it's got to be looked at,
Well,
see
what-
what works for each.
What about that, though? I mean,
development.
now we're talking about 2 and 3 in a row. This doesn't necessarily address that. Like,
But it could be much more easily accommodated with the larger split spaces.
required that they have to be right, is there like a couple of?
Well, my question is, say for
Does that make
instance,
sense?
yeah, I want to see that property, but it's 3 100-foot lots or 50. You could perhaps maybe come up with an idea between the two.
Would be better.
lots. But just have it that every 50 foot, no matter, there should be one parking spot. If it's between the two homes. If there's
Yeah.
more than 3, you follow me?
Do they all
Say there's
stand,
350, say there's 3 lots being developed.
do they all stand their own merit? Are they individual or can you wipe them out?
They are individual.
Right.
You know, fortunately or unfortunately, or however you want to work at it, they are individual.
Right.
The assumption going forward is that probably most lots will come in for a duplex, that obviously seems to be how it's
Right.
going. It's the building type that people are now preferring. And in place now, in the ordinance, which, had the variances have been granted from, is that there is actually a requirement for a driveway to be 20 feet from the driveway of another property and 40 feet on a specific property. And so they've been asking for variances. And so what this does is forces the issue one step further. But obviously, there's some more engineering challenges associated with this in terms of the driveway and then also the building structure. So variances have been being granted, and I don't know if it's just because that was the building type and we're got used to that building type with the driveways or not. Either we need to go back to the enforcement issue of what exists today in the zoning ordinance, which we still create parking on the street, or we need to go forward with something else. And maybe this is not exactly it, but you know, Dan and I have tried to come up with a solution to still keep some parking on the street.
That's our objective here. And I think even if you had a good architect that came down and presented their case, you know what, the driveway should go over here. The objective here is for a 50 by 100 lot, to perhaps get one spot at the end of the day.
And that's doable, right?
You
You see it right
need
here.
one spot to remain somewhere on the frontage.
On the front.
So
Now,
how
perhaps,
they do their.
How they do it, they-
As long as they
building
meet
safety.
engineering standards, however they
Correct.
do that, as long as they preserve one spot on the property.
correct.
But this ordinance, by putting in whatever we end up putting in or not, does that still, excuse me, does that still get possibly, have to be overridden by the board?
That was my second
So
question.
really,
Well, yeah.
what are we doing?
That's my other
Because
question.
they keep granting all that stuff all the time, I know what we do.
Does it matter?
One of the things I have seen is, one part of that ordinance about the parking, they require 40 feet to be between driveways on adjacent properties. Now, if you just do the simple math, you have a 50-foot frontage, and you have 40 feet, you have that, that only leaves you 10 feet. There's no way you're gonna put 2 5-foot driveways. It just doesn't work. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the board just continues to grant that, because it's unrealistic on a 50 by 100 lot to require 40 feet between driveways on the same property.
So this does help us
So
make it
one
more
of the things,
realistic.
if anything, one of the things you can consider, even if you don't want to look at the ordinance, you may want to consider taking that 40 foot and changing that to 20 foot.
And then make them stick to it.
And then basically that makes it more realistic without changing all the rest of the ordinance. You change it to 20 foot, they can still grant the variances if they feel it does, but it also gives, we'll say, 40 foot is totally unrealistic.
Right.
Okay,
That ordinance
50
was
foot.
written pre.
And that's in the ordinance now.
Right, but that's because it was written, that's an old.
That's written for a certain
Which is
type
why they're
of.
granting.
Right.
So we can say, hey, guys, this is what we want now, stop granting it.
Right, if the emphasis is in, if you change that down, that was one of the things we're doing, changing it down to 20. You can tell them to start, necking down, requiring them to get something more like this without actually putting it in the ordinance and saying, we want to see, an architect may come up with something different.